I think we should get started, and our final panelists who are still arriving can sit down when they arrive. I'm Isabel Ewing. I am a presenter for TRT World. I thank you all for coming to hear from us today. This is going to be a very compelling and interesting and wide-ranging conversation. Digital competition in transforming markets. As we speak, governments and institutions around the world are scrambling to keep up with the pace of digital transformation. You've got landmark AI regulation efforts in both the EU and the US, to ongoing global debates about data privacy and the accountability of the likes of Meta in preventing the spread of disinformation, misinformation. We are learning quickly how politically charged and economically consequential the digital economy is becoming. And at the same time, digital infrastructure is becoming a strategic asset, one that can shape trade routes, tilt the balance of geopolitical influence, and determine which economies thrive in this new era. And we are seeing this play out as digital markets become more central to global trade. And so, to unpack this, I'm joined by an exceptional group of panelists. Thank you all for being here. But I'd like to first welcome Mr. Rifat Hisarciklioglu, President of the Union of Chambers and Commodity Exchanges of Turkey. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And digital markets are now the frontline battlefields they're becoming in geopolitical competition. And so what comments do you have to make about this issue, and particularly pertaining to the escalating trade war that we're seeing?
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you very much. I extend my respectful greetings to all esteemed panelists and distinguished guests. It's a great pleasure to be with you today in Antalya. Antalya is a city that is not only global brand tourism, but now also in diplomacy. Thanks to the Antalya Diplomacy Forum, hosted under the auspices of our President and led by our Minister of Foreign Affairs, the city has become a platform for dialogue, common sense, and peace. As TOBB, we are proud to be a supporting partner of this remarkable initiative. Let me begin a simple but serious truth. Trade protectionism is rising. Fragmentation is growing, but that was not the beginning. The global problems we see today did not begin with steel or agriculture. They began with technology barriers. In 2018, the US started to block Chinese technology companies, saying they were a security risk. Then the US also stopped selling computer chips and made strict rules about how data moves between countries. In addition to this, the European Union took another path. They did not fight. They made a new laws. The Digital Markets Act and Digital Services Act were introduced in 2020 and started in 2023. And we passed into a new era of technology wars. Then, with the new Trump presidency, the situation got worse. This is no longer just but about technology. It became a big trade conflict. Many different products were taxed. Many countries were affected. This created a lot of uncertainty and made global trade more expensive and difficult. As the chair of the World Chamber Federation and the vice president of the Eurochambers, I meet with business leaders around the world. In the Turkey EU high-level economic dialogue in Brussels last week, and the WCF Africa Summit in Nairobi 2 days ago, all the business people shared same concern. Trade protectionism is growing and it hurts business. As TOBB, we believe in free trade, fair rules, and working together as countries. Because when we trade more, we all become richer. And we talk to each other, we stay peaceful. Dear friends, let me now speak about digitalization and its benefits. technology is changing how we work, how we sell, and how we will grow. Digital tools help companies, especially small and medium-sized ones, to work better and sell more. At TOBB, we believe that digital tools are a must, not a luxury. Let me give some facts. Digital companies are 70% more likely to export. They can increase income by 30%. Using AI in production can lower mistakes 90%. Smart online stores can grow sales 40%. That's why we created the Smart SME platform at TOBB. It connects more than 100 tech companies with small businesses and offers 3,000 digital tools. We are also working for the future. As TOBB Economic Technology University, we started Turkey's first artificial intelligence engineering department. We built our country's first quantum computer and 15 in the world. And the R&D Center for TOGG, our national electric car, is also at the university. So we are not only learning digital skills, we are helping build a digital future. But we must be careful. There are two risks. First, the rise of the digital monopolies and the risk of over-regulation. So what's the solution? Smart regulation, global cooperation, a level playing field. We must ensure that digital markets remain competitive, inclusive, and dynamic. Let me finish with this. Fortune favors the prepared countries and businesses that get ready for the digital world will be successful. Those who wait will fall behind. Let's work together, not fight. Let's build digital bridges, not digital walls. Let's use technology to bring peace and progress for all. With these thoughts, I would like to conclude my remarks and once again extend my respectful greetings to you all. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hisarociklioglu. I'd like to open the floor if there is anyone who would like to make any comments in response to Mr. Hisarociklioglu's opening remarks. Any of our panelists? Okay, I would like...
I'm happy to. Thank you again for hosting us, Isabel, and thank you to our friend Rafat Bey from TOBB for organizing this and inviting us. I think, you know, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the American voice here on the panel, and representing them, I certainly agree fully with the sentiments on international trade that His Excellency Rafat Bey referred to. And I think that the business community stands with that comment as well, also noting that a balanced trade field, which we also believe is the objective of the US administration, is equally important as well. So I think that both of those aspects, you know, of having free trade but also fair trade are aspects that, you know, will certainly, you know, are important. But the positive side on that is that the US and Turkey maintain a trade balance. It's 40 billion both ways, roughly. So consequentially, we think that in this environment, there's a unique opportunity for Turkey, a competitive advantage vis-a-vis the rest of them. So we see the glass full, brimming over to the top when it comes to US-Turkey. And thanks again to TOBB and others.
Thank you, Mr. Choksi. I'd like to make a follow-up question on this and move us more sort of in the direction of this, the panel, which is obviously on the digital economy and its changes. The US and Europe continue to clash over digital rules. We first saw J.D. Vance's broadside back in February against Europe, you know, aimed at fighting, saying that, you know, criticizing Europe for its crackdown on disinformation online, and also telling Europe that its tech laws were stifling innovation and stifling the development of AI. Is this something that the American business community is concerned about, this fragmentation in terms of digital rules in the US and in Europe?
Yes, absolutely. I think that we feel, the American business community feels, that the European framework for digital regulation and digital taxation is somewhat overbearing and has stifled innovation and growth. And therefore, we are angst when we see countries follow that model. We think that that is something we've advocated for years, and it wasn't with this administration, but certainly with the Biden administration as well, that there has been the European model stifles competition, and certainly we don't want to see it either in the United States, and we will advocate for it against where it's being pushed elsewhere in the world.
Michael Schumann, I'd like to ask you a follow-up to this. I mean, do you see, in terms of the fragmentation of digital rules that we are seeing, do you think there is a realistic path towards alignment here, or will companies continue to have to navigate different digital rules depending on which countries they're operating in?
Well, at the moment, certainly. But first of all, thank you again for inviting me here to the Antalya Diplomacy Forum and the opportunity to contribute. I believe that we see some very concerning trends and developments in terms of fragmentation of digital ecosystems. And the implementation of tax sanctions that fragment innovation ecosystems certainly not help. So if we talk about digital cooperation and digital competition, we should probably heed the theme of the Antalya Diplomacy Forum, which is reclaiming diplomacy, reclaiming and rediscover the language of diplomacy, and that should also include tech diplomacy. The question is, do we want to have AI as a bridge or as a battleground? And should we treat digital competition in terms of geopolitical rivalry, or not more as digital cooperation for global benefit? And I think Germany's position, the EU's position, is to learn and look from everyone, and rather not further escalate the split.
Thank you so much. Has anyone got some, Mr. Irbit, I notice you nodding. Have you got some comments to make in continuation on this theme?
First of all, I want to welcome everybody, both our, the panelists and also all our guests. I think I am one of the people here who is close to be representing the public side. Even though I'm the CEO of the investment fund, it's the public investment fund together with Mr. Chairman Hisar Cıklıoğlu. By the way, apart from all his titles, he mentioned many titles. The most important for us is he's being a board member for our wealth fund. It's a great chance to him in our board. As you can imagine, he's representing thousands of business from all layers. So it's a very critical contribution he's making to us. And when we talk about the topics we are talking about, I think from my point of view as representing the wealth fund here, the bodies like ours is critical in these problems because, at one side there's the protection of national interests. Maybe we can approach from two different angles. First, the privacy, the protection of the personal rights, because increasing technological means, there's a huge maybe easinesses in the lives, loss of contribution to our life, but at the same time increasing problems and concerns about privacy, safety, security, and at the same time, on the other in another level, the national interest, interest of the country, the security of the countries, how these issues will be approached, all of them will be critical. And when you look at these topics from these senses, all the argumentations going on in the world level, we can see that maybe bodies like us, like the wealth funds, which is representing at the same time the national interests, while at the same time has the capacity to invest and to contribute to innovation are playing an interesting role. During my time in the investment office before, I was the head of the investment office, which is in charge of helping the foreign direct investments especially and contributing to increasing of foreign direct investments to Turkey. I always missed the existing of such a body because, as you can imagine, I always say that Turkish bureaucracy is also one of the most experienced in the world. This experience goes back to Ottoman times. So just like the other bureaucracies in the world, I can imagine. And if they want to do something, they are great. You know, they can find million ways to do it. But if they don't want to, they can find maybe 10 million ways not to do it. So they can be creative on the negative side. So you have to include them. You have to make them a part of the story. You have to convince them that there is something good for the national interest in all this process. So whenever, designing and helping to make these regulations, to provide the ways to increase innovation, to encourage this, to paving the ways for these developments, it's important to put everything into consideration and help have these people, these decision makers in the process to make the best results out of all these discussions. This is why, as many other bodies, the bodies like the sovereign wealth funds like us can, I think, play an interesting and important role, both investing in innovation, helping these regulations to be done in the best way, having the both sides hat at the same time, the national interest and the private interest at the same time. I think this must be the very reason why I'm invited here to this panel today. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Salim Bey. I'd like to lead on to Mr. Isiaka Abdul Kadir Imam. Is my mic on? Yes. As the D8 countries represent major emerging markets, I want to ask you what risks arise when global digital governance is led disproportionately by a handful of countries? And what role do emerging markets need to play in making sure that everybody gets a fair say in how these rules are developed? I guess, how can multilateralism help in this regard?
Firstly, I think before I respond, I want to use this opportunity to express my very deep appreciation on behalf of myself and my organization to the government of the Republic of Turkey for hosting this very important forum, and especially the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's come a long way. 2021, and the ADF has grown exponentially, since its inaugural session in 2021, where it drew about 2,000 participants to, a staggering 6,000 participants this year. So that's a remarkable achievement, and I want to use this opportunity to commend the government of the Republic of Turkey and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for initiating this very important global platform. Having said that, the digital information is very, very important, and like you rightly said, I think I subscribe largely to what has been discussed about the need for a global framework regarding this very important platform. But over and above that, I think what's more important to us at the D8 would be the issue of government partnership with the private sector partnership, because the bottom line is who are the major beneficiary of the digital space? It's people. So there must be a strategic partnership between the government and the private sector. Secondly, there's also the need to deepen education. Investing heavily in education and digital literacy. I think for us, especially in the Global South, in my organization, a lot of our people are still very much, I wouldn't want to use the word uneducated in terms of digital policy, but a lot of them are still struggling, getting to terms with it. Some of our member states, yes, have gone advanced, like Turkey. We've just admitted Azerbaijan. They have a very, very advanced digital space as well. Turkey, we all know this, they have this app called eDevlet. It's very, very well developed. Azerbaijan has MyGov. It's also very well developed. But some of our other member states do not have such So there is need for us to invest heavily in education and digital literacy in order to, if you're going to create this global digital framework, I think we need to invest in education and strategic partnership with the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And on that point, I think we're seeing, just with this rapid acceleration of this world, of the digital economy, of technological advancement, I'd like to put this question to anybody who would like to answer it, but are governments keeping pace with making sure that they are playing the role that they should be in shaping the digital economy? I mean, what role should they play versus the private sector? We are seeing, the development of AI so rapidly. We saw Mark Zuckerberg and I think Sam Altman from OpenAI address Congress last year and talk about the need for regulation. And so I want to bring that back to what are the risks of this sort of the changes in the governance and the regulation potentially being driven by private companies, and how are governments keeping pace? Would anyone like to pick up on that one for me? Andreas, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks so much, dear Isabel. Thanks so much to the government of Turkey and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for bringing us together for this important point. Let me start by I'm Andreas Schall. I'm Director for Global Relations, G20 Sherpa at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, in Paris. And I want to start by a short biographical note, because 35 years ago, when I took my A-levels, the Berlin Wall fell, and a mobile phone was this size and was as heavy as this plate. Today, we are much smaller. 2 years later, Francis Fukuyama wrote about the end of history. The end of history did not happen. We got the internet, we got the iPhone, we got everything. And my thesis for our conversation is today, that today, in the 20s of this century, we are in a pretty similar historic, decisive situation. With the development of artificial intelligence, we need to kind of rethink the way how we cooperate, right? And for me, the answer to the fragmentation described by the colleagues is cooperation, is multilateral cooperation. At the OECD, we are opening up. That's why we are opening up. We have now 38 members. We have Brazil, Argentina, Peru, Thailand, Indonesia in the accession process. So we're going more with cooperation. And this brings me to the point also where you ask, what is it what governments should do? And I mean, there is on the one side the huge potential of AI, and this is where the US agenda and the European and the Chinese agenda probably come together. AI for growth. We are working with South Africa now on AI for Africa. So what can we do to really benefit from the growth potential of artificial intelligence? Second point was mentioned by Isaka. Investment in the people's skills. This technological change we will only master if we take the people with us and if we kind of invest in the skills of our people. And I see it in my kids. They have the technological skills, but they also need the classical education skills to judge the information they deal and to be as smart as the machine is. And this is something I think we need to invest in, government needs to invest. And last point, and this brings me to the regulation side, I think we also need to be smart in the regulation side, and we have developed, therefore, in the OECD, the first ever principles on artificial intelligence, 2019, who then became G20 principles. We are now doing registers. We're monitoring a classification of artificial intelligence. We have a registry on incidents of artificial intelligence, because, again, these machines were pretty smart and pretty intelligent, and our regulation, our way of how states and governments cooperate, which is either needs to be as smart and as agile, as flexible. We will not answer this developed by the Bismarckian or Prussian state of regulation, but we need to have flexible regulations. We need to have sandbox approaches and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the World Trade Organization is called digital trade, I think, the fastest growing area, but it's also one of the hardest to govern multilaterally. So I'd like to put this to, again, anyone who thinks that they would like to answer it. Why is it so difficult to find consensus here?
I think it is difficult because the regulation has evolved fragmentally. I mean, each country doing its own thing often. But, we support at the US Chamber the types of global cooperation that reduce barriers to digital trade. An example has been in APEC, the cross-border privacy rules that have broadened even beyond APEC to non-APEC countries to include it. So I think that you've seen the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime Protocols as an example. So we support those types of multilateral frameworks and the evolution of those.
Thank you. Anyone else like to add any comments to that?
Thank you, Mr. Kush, for that information. I think also consensus is being made more difficult by the very first topic that we started this session with, protectionism. Protectionism does not build, it's good in the short term, but in the long run, these are some of the risks of protectionism. It does not create room for consensus. That's the problem.
Thank you. Yes, please.
But let me just answer, because I think just the fact that consensus is difficult does not mean that we should fight for it. I would say, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Margaret Thatcher, but she basically said there is no alternative, Tina. And because my wife is also named Tina, I know that there is no alternative. So, but I think this is also true for consensus, that we need to fight for it. And this is what we are currently doing in the OECD. And I mean, there is kind of course, the current situation also brings us with all sorts of challenges on languages, on things we agree. But I mean, the way multilateralism works is a fight for consensus. And this is something where I believe there's an opportunity also in the digital economy development.
Can I answer? I think the very city that we making this organization here is actually a great example of this consensus building and coexistence, because this is a city, we always said that where Ukrainians and Russians are staying in the same apartments, or the Iranians or United States residents are making the holidays in the same hotels. I think this is what we must be doing. I think this is also very meaningful with the very foundation of this forum, finding ways for better cooperation between the public and private, the national interest and the private interest. I think this will be critical. Connected with the previous question you asked, what could be the answer? In a very optimistic or opportunistic way, I would say that increasing bodies like the sovereign wealth funds and their capacity, I would say, definitely, because the bodies like this, increasing the opportunities and the ways and channels to provide more efficient partnership between these conflicting interests would be critical. And this also, these organizations makes this cross-border partnerships also more possible too. For example, I was in Baghdad this Monday because we made a memorandum of understanding between the Iraq Development Fund and the Turkey Wealth Fund, just to build a cross-border, the development project, which will include not only the conventional economic means of transportation, but at the same time fiber networks. And also most probably a regulation will be based upon these new developments too. So infrastructure comes with also superstructure, so it's critical. But I think the world leaders are also seeing this need in a better way. This is why I think I remember that in Mr. Trump's election agenda, there was a introduction of a new fund. UK just made such kind of an opportunity. Maybe the answers can be different, but at the end, the need for such structures, I think, is better understood now. So everybody's trying to take their steps according to this need, I think.
Thank you. I'd like to go to Atsuko Hirose from the Energy Charter. What do you have to add to this conversation? I mean, obviously moving towards enormous digital growth that we are seeing needs to come with it energy security and sustainability. Can you tell us a little bit about how the work that you do pertains to the conversation that we're having?
Thank you very much, Isabel. And like my fellow distinguished speakers, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the government of Turkey, especially the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who's organizing this event, and of course under the auspices of His Excellency President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. So I am representing Energy Charter Secretariat, and we are supporting our member countries in implementing the treaty. Now, you may be wondering what this treaty is about, perhaps, so we are not that well known. It is the only multilateral treaty strictly focused on energy with a principle of long-term cooperation among its member states. So I think my co-panelists have been, speakers around the table have been speaking about the importance of multilateralism in challenging times for the trade and rising protectionism. And I think our treaty is very much on point, especially because it is a culmination of efforts of all the member states who came together back in 1990s to agree on the text of a treaty for this very purpose. And the member states of our treaty spans from Europe all through the Caucasus, Turkey, through Central Asia to Far East. I'm Japanese, so that's why I am a Secretary General here. So it does reflect the multilateralism that has been talked about, as well as having a treaty with universal appeal. And how does this relate to digitalization? Digitalization is becoming a crucial component with regard to energy sector, because for energy, it is very important to address the issue of energy transition in relation to the Paris Agreement commitment that all countries have entered into, and to reach the net zero emission. For that, investment in renewable and clean energy is very important. But however, to incorporate clean energy sources into the existing energy system, you need digitalization, because you need to collect data, you need to manage assets, monitor them, and all of that digitalization is indispensable. And so therefore, well, I'm trying to tie the topic of digitalization to the importance of energy and how our treaty can help the countries, because our treaty addresses a matter of long-term international cooperation. It also covers transfer of technology, and it covers producing states as well as consumer states. And it has rules applicable to the transit of energy systems. Transfer is very important. We also talked about connectivity. Turkey is placed in the middle of 3 continents, and it is a very important energy producing. It has amazing solar potential, as well as being a transit country for important oil and gas corridors. So for this connectivity, the enhancement of further connectivity, we need digitalization. So I do see very much of a potential for our treaty to be able to help member states, as well as we hope to expand the treaty and make it more universal, so it will provide further platform for cooperation. And one point I want to mention again is how it can facilitate the investment. Our treaty is unique in it offers the possibility for investors to have a direct recourse to the states, unlike WPO you mentioned, which is only state-to-state dispute settlement mechanism. Our treaty allows the investors to be able to take arbitration action against the states. So this is much more democratic, because it offers the opportunity for the investors to have a more control. Right? This is not necessarily open to all kinds of treaties. So, and the beauty of arbitration is our wars can be enforced anywhere in the world. If you have a decision of the court, you may not be able to enforce it because there's no mutual enforcement. But most of the countries are members of the New York Convention that recognizes reciprocal enforcement of foreign judgment. I'm sorry I'm being very technical, but I think it does reflect the interest of the business in trying to foster foreign investments, or the receiving countries if they want to attract investment. So I hope I was able to tie this into the importance of digitalization in energy, as well as the importance of a mutual and universal application of law, treaty-based regime. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Would anyone like to pick up on any of those comments? Thomas, I will go to, oh yes, Michael, please.
Sure, maybe I can raise some question marks in that discussion, because we focus on a lot of very important topics here, and we're all very optimistic. But maybe I can give some examples from Germany, because we just had an election campaign and they're focusing on building a new government. And the issue of AI actually didn't play much of a role there. We're falling behind. I mean, we have good examples and benchmarks in Germany of building public-private partnerships, the platform industry 4.0, but now we're falling behind. We're talking about digital literacy in education, but we hardly have digital literacy in our policy making and in policymakers. We're talking about investment and thinking that investment could do the job. We learned in the EU that regulation isn't everything, so now we build 5 gigafactories and probably we get 2 to Germany. But then we see in China that investment isn't everything, that if you're smart enough, you can outperform. And what I'm missing is the Chinese perspective, also missing it at the table here, because we know too little of what they're doing, and we've focused a lot in the AI discussion on, large language models, etc. But China has a very, very, very deliberate state industry strategy that puts the focus on the benefit to the people. How does AI serve the people? How does it addresses real-world needs? And we know far too little about it. So I think we should go there, study, and learn, and see how we can implement similar strategies.
Thank you so much. Mr. Choksi, do you have anything to add to that in terms of what we can learn? I mean, China is moving at a pace far quicker than anywhere else in the world in this space. What needs to be done there to ensure, I guess, everybody else, as you say, Michael, doesn't get left behind?
I think I certainly agree with Michael. I mean, it'd be a very useful voice to have at the table in these types of conversations. I think that there was a lot of surprise when the recent Chinese effort with a high-end computer chip, that how it was developed, the cost it was developed, how effectively it could be, how consumer-facing it could be. So I think it is an important, and there are certain areas of confluence that the global community needs to work with China, and this is certainly one area that could be of tremendous importance there. I mean, the phenomena of TikTok around the world is a good example of the needs of a product that is very consumer-friendly. It also helps small businesses. It is popular among Americans equally as it may be popular anywhere else in the world. Now, if there are downsides to it, they need to be addressed through discussion.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you very much, Isabel. I think we are gradually now moving into the area of some of the challenges that digitalization poses, and it's quite interesting because as much as it is desirable to have a global framework, there is also a need to look at the global risks that this digitalization poses. Government should not only focus on investment, like Mr. Schuman said, but should also look at the risk. We have a lot of our youth now having digital mental illness. How is government going to address such things? Online ethics in the area of cyber security. So I think those kind of areas are the challenges that also we need to look at.
Thank you so much. Andreas.
Just one additional comment on the conversation on China and technological development. I remember sitting on a similar conference in the Boao Forum 5 years ago on a panel with the head of research of Huawei, who said, with 5G, we will change the way a farmer conducts his tractor. He will sit on his sofa with his 5G device and the tractor will just do his job. But now, 5 years later, with artificial intelligence, you may not need the device even anymore, but the tractor will tell you how he is doing its work. And that's why I think, because this is, I mean, this is at the moment social fantasy, but the point is, if we kind of have this kind of technological development in China and elsewhere, we better sit together and we discuss about standards, because you do not want the tractor being out of control and running to your neighbor's field. You want to tell him what precisely he has to do. And that's why I believe this kind of, I mean, without over-regulating things, but this kind of these conversations across zones and also across zones which have different interests and which may not be like-minded. And this brings me again to consensus and to, but the talks about standards, how we kind of manage these developments is something which I believe is very important.
Certainly, and I'd like to pick up on that point of we've moved now into the challenges and the risks of the digital technology developing. Rifat Bey, I'd like to ask you about I guess how are we looking to Turkish businesses? What are the risks that are perceived in the digitalization? Obviously, there's a lot of opportunity, but in terms of AI taking jobs, those kinds of concerns, for my two Turkish panelists, what are the sort of challenges that you perceive in Turkey in that regard, and what is being done to ensure that jobs aren't lost, that we do make the most of the opportunity presented by AI and not so much and try and mitigate the risks, I guess?
First of all, I want to say Turkish people are too dynamic. We take the shape very easily. So for us, we are not afraid. If it change, we are changing immediately. Technology is changing how we work, how we sell, how we grow. Digital tools help companies, especially small and medium-sized companies, are very dynamic because of our welfare is this. As TOB, we believe digital tools are a must and a luxury. They are not luxury. Let me, digital companies and the people are immediately, they change and they take the position very immediately. So for us, no problem.
Great, thank you. I'd like to go to Emma. Edem, Michael, would you like to quickly?
I just wanted to add something short, because I think the opportunities create opportunities for business, but the risks do just as well. Because whether it is expanding lifelong learning, whether it is launching community-based programs, whether it is promoting digital well-being or focus on inclusion, elder generations, there is a lot of opportunity for new business models.
I'd like to pick up with Emma, because what we've been discussing here has, I think, made everybody quite aware of just how wide-ranging the digital economy and how much of a catch-all phrase, I guess, it has become for so much. But everything we've been talking about is here on Earth, and Emma's field, among many fields, is space. And so how is space connected? Can you help us all understand to what we're discussing today, and how much more are we going to see the expansion of what we're discussing beyond Earth?
Isabel, thank you very much. And can I also thank Turkey for hosting this really critical forum, because without diplomacy, the world is going to be even more fragmented than it already is. So congratulations, Turkey. With regards to space, let me start first of all with terrestrial digital world. All the conversations we've heard here, all of them are valid, and all of them are critical to our everyday lives. There is so much more to do. I'm going to throw this into the mix. What we are discussing today, we should have been discussing 30 years ago, when the digital world started, cyber, later AI, started to take shape. We are at the moment playing catch-up when industry doesn't wait for governments, innovation doesn't wait for governments. I have to agree that Turkey is actually quite good at adapting and quite agile when needed. There are some that are less agile than others. But given where we are on the terrestrial digital, we have only just begun in space. Space has been the preserve of defense and security for many years. There has been incredible innovation up there. But one thing that I have noticed is that, particularly sitting in a forum like this, having these discussions, what again I am noticing, and here in Turkey too, please do take note, that sometimes we forget that the digital world has been moving at fast pace up there. Space is more than just satellites. Space is about the future of humanity. When we don't know what's going to happen here on Earth, even now, let alone in generations to come, we don't know what the future of humanity holds. And when NASA says they're going to colonize space, which I hope they will, and not on their own, with the rest of us as well, by 2040, I think it might be a little bit more beyond that, but I am delighted with the work that is being done. If I was to even begin to explain to you now what has been happening in terms of science and technology in space, it would probably blow your minds. And what we have discovered and what more we are doing. It is more than defense and security now. We have been going into a space economy for quite some time. But the space economy cannot move forward without digitalization, because if it does, we're not going to be communicating with the Earth. So what I have to, and quite frankly, all the issues that we have here on Earth, from regulations, standardization, ethics, all of it put together, we have exactly the same issues up in space. But we're at the very beginning. There is nothing that is going to happen on Earth one day that isn't going to be touched by space. And if we do not put together the whole of the globe, at the moment we are fragmented because we are not seeing that we are no more than a speck of dust in the universe. There is a lot more, as I've said, that we know that you may not yet be aware of because we don't always talk about it, but it is out there in the public if you look for it. But when we are no more than a speck of dust, suddenly the borders and the fragmentation we have on Earth becomes immature. And this is when you can bring that diplomacy together, whether it is through diplomacy, whether it is through digitalization, cyber, AI. If we don't bring it together now, we are going to find that it could even wipe us out. And I'm not even talking about that existential threat up in space and what the future of Earth is going to be. Can I just really hit this home in this way? Only recently, it seems like it's not very much, 2%, there was a possibility of a cataclysmic collision of an asteroid with Earth. It's less now than it was before. It's thankfully, it's bypassing us. But if that had happened, that shows us how humanity must come together with great speed, and that does include togetherness on digitalization. I can see Michael's really struggling here to contain himself. This must be really more exciting. Come on, Michael, tell us what you've got.
Well, we said at the beginning we're going to make it interesting here so that we have an alternative program to the Russian foreign minister. But sorry if I disagree. I know all this fascination about space, and we've been hearing about it all the time, and Elon Musk is making the headlines all the time. But I'd rather see the progress that we're making in AI to be adapted to what really ails humanity, and that is poverty alleviation, food security, healthcare, climate protection, restoring peace. We're not even able to live peacefully together in peaceful coexistence and sustainable development. And space and Mars, I think, can wait. Sorry.
I I see you'd like a right of reply.
And I'm really going to enjoy this debate. Let's talk food security. Let's talk water security, energy. All of that right now is happening up in space. And this is why I said that it may be that you are unaware of precisely the kind of innovation that is going on. And let me give you an example. We took up, when I say we, not myself, but the space community, took up a cutting from a grapevine just to see how it works, see what will happen. And we grew it for 6 months and then brought it back down to earth, only to realize that the structure had changed to such an extent that it actually redeveloped itself so that it was resistant to disease here on earth. When we look at, for example, time warps, we know that zero gravity will speed up time. When we speed itself orbiting the Earth and otherwise, it will slow down time. Imagine this. You can actually calculate how fast and what gravity there is so that you have just the right amount of time. Instead of injecting your chickens with hormones, why don't you pop them up into space and then bring them back down fully formed within a few days for you to be able to eat? I know it sounds like fantasy right now. Water. We know
Some
that
animal
there
welfare
are
issues.
We know, do you know, if I can work out the time warp for slowing down aging, trust me, I'd be up there right now. So imagine water security. We are already aware that there are asteroids where we may be able to land. We are investigating them right now. There may actually be water security on those. Energy, solar energy, up in space, coming back down to Earth. Data storage is actually up there. Looking at how we are countering radiation so that back on Earth, there is going to be less cancer. There is so much. So I would say, rather than hampering or stagnating what we are doing in space, it will speed up what we are doing on Earth.
Thank you, Emma. I would like to say everything you're describing is I think, indicative of human achievement and ambition and hope, and it is just, it gives me a lot of hope to hear what you're saying. But I wonder, given we're here today, we're here at this forum because diplomacy is failing in many ways. We're seeing some leaders in particular taking a very undiplomatic route, and we're really meeting here today to try and, I guess our whole theme is to reclaim diplomacy. And so I guess my question would be, to anyone who'd like to answer it, would be, are we able to fix what we have going on here on Earth, which is failing us in some ways currently, and prevent those kind of hindrances that, you know, the issues that, you know, we've got tech giants trying to get in ahead of governments and make the rules before governments. How do we get all of that under control to then make sure that our race in space to achieve what is so could be so brilliant for mankind, humankind, doesn't get plagued by the same issues that we have down here on Earth?
Boss.
Salim Bey.
Thank God I watched some movies like Armageddon and Interstellar, so I got an idea what's been told here. But what I can say that, you know, especially, you know, when Mr. Schuman also told about, I think it's also connected to the question here, the challenges. It's about to come to challenges. I think some more trust, especially, is needed. Of course, it's very, you know, subject, you know, not a very tangible phenomenon, but based upon also what Mr. Sarjoklu said when he told about Turkish people creating solutions easily to, you know, adapt to the situations. I think it's not only about the Turkish people here, all the nations around the region, because I remember when I was the head of the investment office, I always been asked about what about the regional conflicts, what about the problems, and I said that I always answered, you know, guys, you know, this part of the world has never been a stable part of the world in the history, you know. If you dig in every meter, you can find the graveyard of a civilization, you know, and but the nations here somehow survived and they developed skills to deal with the situation. Not only the Turks, all the people around. And I mean not only this geography specifically, Africa, all the developing countries and their nations, they have actually the huge potential to create solutions with their young population, fresh ideas. But I think we need some more support. For example, Mr. Joma perfectly put the issue of China's contribution to this issue, or the contribution, the challenges maybe, depends on where you look from. For example, as Turkey, we are also a part of this, or they want to make us a part of this Belt and Road Initiative too. So we have huge potential to make also business with China, for example, especially the Turkish companies. But whenever we want to make something about that, immediately questions raises from in the eyes of our friends in the other parts of the Western world, especially the US or UK or Europe. What about using the Chinese infrastructure? What about, what's happening there? So, but if we can have some more trust on that, we can do it. Because inevitably in the history, we had to do this to survive. So at the moment also we can do it. We can make US companies to invest in China. We can make Chinese companies to invest in the United States, or Canadian companies to invest in North Africa, or Russian companies or Japanese companies to invest in Africa. Turkish people are already doing this everywhere in the world. For example, all these nations can do. So what I think the most important thing to have is to have a little bit more trust, especially from the developed part of the world to the nations here, to create some solutions, because they get this in their DNA. I think they have the potential for these new ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good point. Emma, I'd like to go back to you.
Yes, thank you. Unity and cohesion, that is really the topic that we're looking for when we talk about diplomacy. I'm going to take you back up to space again. I know you're trying to bring me back down to Earth. That's just not going to happen. I am so going to take, you're not going to bring me down, I'm going to bring you all up. Okay, so this is what we know. The International Space Station actually had Russia and others involved. And they worked, everybody worked in incredible harmony and collaboration, irrespective of what was happening down here on Earth. We have been able to show how we can actually work together when it really matters. It does matter here on Earth, but we can actually show that it is possible for us to have unity and cohesion. And I'm going to add something else to the mix. I'm now going to come back down to Earth, if that's okay, just temporarily though. And we spoke about China, and of course, the G20 houses China, the US, the United Kingdom, and others all together. And in the G20, the discussions range from the digital, and I know that because I'm creating the task force for that here in the United Kingdom, I am anyway. It involves space, of course. It involves a whole host of other issues of great importance down here on Earth. So yes, when we say China should be at this table, China is already on tables, which the rest of the world is involved, and so is Russia.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Actually, I want to support Emma because I think what you were saying, and not to ignore what's happening in the world, but also have the foresight to think about what could be happening. And it's always important to have such foresight. We don't have a crystal ball, but the awareness of what can happen in the world is very important. And I don't mean to say that we should be taking eye off the ball from what's happening on the ground, but the awareness of the future, especially because we represent not only ourselves, but our future generations, is very important. So I think it was refreshing to, because I never thought that such topic would come up, and I think audience is all fascinated, and there's a hope that we could think in a larger space, no pun intended, than what's on the Earth. Going back to your question about what we can do, I think the world is so interconnected now. I think it's mentioned multiple times during this forum. there's no way but the multilateralism and collaboration to go forward. And of course, we are all aware of some undesirable political factors that seem to be happening in many parts of the world. But only way we can counter that is through really the will of the people and all people who recognize the importance of working together and collaborating. And I think that's why the government of Turkey is hosting this forum. And I have to say, it has been very enriching experience for me personally to attend, and it's a great forum that's not driven by, let's say, developed world, but more of a balanced world corridor, in the middle corridor, as well as north and south sort of the boundaries. That is convening this, and it has a convening power and wherewithal to be able to do this. And I think this is fantastic. So not to say anything to OECD, but OECD itself is expanding. But I think there should be more initiative of global south, or balance the boundary between global north and south that can have this kind of forum. And of course, it may sound only talk, but talking is important, because if you don't talk, nothing would ever happen. So the action requires also talk to be going forward. So in that sense, I'm very, again, grateful that I have been given the opportunity to take part in this panel and to be seeing a new perspective, and as well as hopefully to be able to publicize my secretariat and my treaty. Because again, I would like to say it is one example of that, evidence of the successful efforts to negotiate a treaty that is for the cooperation for all. So thank you very much.
Atsuko, thank you. I know that we have a couple of panelists who would like to speak, but I'm aware that Andreas has to leave for a flight imminently in a couple of minutes. So I'll just give you a moment to speak, Andreas, before you guys. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Isabel. Unfortunately, the beaming does not work to the Antalya airport yet, so that's why I need to go really physically by car. But I'm looking forward to the innovation, and maybe in 5 years' time we will be with airport, with flying taxis, or even with beaming, with teleportation or something like that. So let's work on that. I can assure you, when you're sitting at 3 a.m. in a G20 negotiations, and Rifat knows it very well, you would wish that you could press the button and say, Scotty, beam me up. And this is where I'm with Atsuka. I think the point is, all the technological development we are facing, they will not avoid us to rule the problems on Earth and to kind of sit together, to go the hard way on consensus. And this is something what we're trying. We are just a little planet as the OECD in the universe, but what we are trying to provide an avenue, a forum to be as inclusive as possible, to bring more countries from the South, because I actually believe that this division between North, South, East, West, this does not help us at the end of the day if we are not attack the issues we want to attack from a consensus, from a cooperation point of view. And this is something, with that, I beam me now to Antalya, but it was real pleasure and real fun to discuss with all of you.
Thank you so much, Andreas. Thank you. Now I'd like to go to Siaka, yes, and then to Michael.
Thank you very much, Isabella. I just, on the way forward, look, I tried to think of other options, but I couldn't. I just couldn't phantom any other option other than to say, look, promoting international cooperation is still the best way out. Yes, I agree with Isabella, that diplomacy or multilateralism may be under stress, but it's still the best arsenal that we have in our stock, to move the world forward. So I would agree with Mr. Salim that yes, trust. That's what is missing. So we need more of confidence-building measures between the global North and the countries in the global South, to move forward. That's what I think we need. Not to say, because diplomacy is under stress, you now throw away the baby with the water. No. It's just under stress. We just need to find a way to mend it, if I may use that word. And I think the confidence-building measures is what is missing. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael.
Yes, thank you. I would also completely agree what you said before here on the Antalya Diplomacy Forum. I always cherish it as an opportunity to engage with perspectives from the global south. And I wish there would be more participants from Europe, from Germany, to come here and to seize that opportunity. Here it's about reclaiming diplomacy, reclaiming the language, rediscovering the language of diplomacy. I think another issue just as crucial, for us at least, in Europe and in Germany and in the so-called quote-unquote West, would be to rediscover the willingness and the readiness to learn. If there's something that you can learn from Asia, from China, or many other countries in Asia, it is this willingness to learn. You can learn that in Turkey too. I think we need a little bit less arrogance, more humility, more modesty, and the willingness to learn, to look at innovations, no matter where they come from, be it from Turkey, be it from Asia, from the US, from China. Study them, and thus redefining competition as leading us not to the edge, but to the ceiling, you know, and to space, maybe to space too, but be competition for the greater benefit of the global good and the benefit of the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Choksi.
And I think, you know, you started saying that the private sector is often kind of creating the frameworks and the rules, but you also need governments to coming together to create its international standards. And international standards really benefit the private sector. So what you really need is the public-private sector partnership here.
Would anyone else like to make any comments? Okay. Emma.
Can I, on private public partnerships, I have to totally agree with that. When I'm not doing space, I'm actually a barrister as well, I'm a lawyer. So, and what we find is standardization is actually the answer, but it's more interoperability rather than just one glove fits all, because one glove doesn't fit all. We have to sometimes find some common ground, and this is when we bring those standardizations together. And that's across the board. We only need to look at the Incoterms to see how well it worked. And that wasn't governments. That was, in fact, from industry-led when they recognized in maritime, it started in maritime, when we recognized that, in fact, governments are not always going to agree because there is going to be, from protectionism to isolation to defending their territories, you name it. So sometimes industry has to take charge. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to make some final comments?
No, very briefly, I just wanted to, Andreas has gone, but I just wanted him to know, if anybody wants to pass this message on to him, we already have flying taxis. And when it comes to Beam Me Up Scotty, we actually have, in quantum physics, entanglement. Somebody look that up if you want to. I'm not going to go into it now.
Thank you very much, Isabel, for your excellent moderation. I also thank all the panelists, but especially for the participants. I know that we have to compete with Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs to attract interest. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you. That was a wonderful, wide-ranging discussion. Thank you all, panelists, and thank you all for being here, because I know the Russian Foreign Minister would be an interesting watch. So really appreciate you being here, because I think that was a great conversation. Thank you.